الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. There's no doubt that we have a really important principle in Islam, which is that al-asma'u la tughayyiru al-haqa'iq. The names that people give to things don't change their reality. You can take a bottle of wine, remove the label, and write grape juice, but it will still be just as haram as when it said wine on it. That's because names don't change the reality of what we're dealing with. So the fact that there are friends of yours who describe themselves as being from Ahl Sunnah doesn't make them necessarily from Ahl Sunnah, because to be from Ahl Sunnah, you have to be, in terms of your belief and your action, in accordance with the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, far away from what is introduced later on, or what was introduced later on from all the various kinds of innovations. So the fact that these friends make dua to other than Allah to come close to Him, how can we advise them to stop this action? The first thing is we need to understand that when we're talking about this, a person has to listen with an open mind. That's what I would ask them for in the beginning. There's no point in closing your mind to what I'm going to say and saying that whatever he says, I will not listen, because that's not the approach of a person whose heart is open to the truth. If your heart is open to the truth and you want to know the truth, then you have to listen. Now, it's really important also that a person goes back to the Book of Allah and goes back to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So let's look at the Book of Allah Azza wa Jal, and let's look at the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. The masajid, the mosques, belong to Allah, so do not make dua to anyone except Allah. فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Do not make dua to anyone along with Allah. Now this word ahada is min alfaz al-umum, from the general terms. That means everything and anything comes into there. That doesn't matter whether it is a Muslim, a wali, or a pious person, or a non-pious person, or a tree, or a stone, or a star. فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Don't make dua to anyone besides Allah. Now it might be the person listens to this and says, that's fine, but I'm not making dua to anyone except Allah. I'm making dua to Allah through that person. Okay, what did Allah say about this in the Quran? مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. Those who took partners, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا, those who took مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاء, they took partners instead of Allah. مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَحْكُمُ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي مَنْ هُوَ كَاذِبٌ كَفَّارٌ. Allah will certainly judge between them. Those people who took wali, they took a wali, that's the word Allah uses, not the word I'm using. They took a wali instead of Allah. They said, we only worship that wali to make us near to Allah, to bring us closer to Allah in position. لِيُقَرِّبُونَا, to make us closer. Now let me read the wording of the question. They make dua to other than Allah to come closer to Him. They make dua to other than Allah to come closer to Him. Those who take a wali instead of Allah, we only do so to make us closer to Allah. Completely equal. Allah does not guide the one who is a liar and an extreme disbeliever. Kaffar, Allah described them. Kaffar, an extreme disbeliever. Because they used to make dua to awliya, to a wali, to make them closer to Allah. That's the words that Allah Azza wa Jalla used. In Surah Al-Zumar, at the beginning of Surah Al-Zumar. And indeed, this idea of not making dua to anyone other than Allah, not making dua to the awliya, to the wali, not making dua for seeking shafa'ah. Because as Allah Azza wa Jalla said about the disbelievers, that they said, إِنَّمَا هَؤُلَاءِ شُفَعَاؤُنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. These are only our intercessors with Allah. All of this is exactly the same thing. The same thing that the people of Quraysh used to do before. Those people of Quraysh who were not Muslim, who Allah revealed about them, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. Say, O disbelievers, I don't worship what you worship. Those same people used the same reasoning. They also had people who they considered to be a wali. And they also asked Allah through them to get near to Allah, to get intercession for in the sight of Allah. That's why they did it. That's what the Quran tells us about them. But Allah Azza wa Jalla didn't accept it from them. And Allah didn't take them away from disbelief, or didn't consider this action of theirs to be anything other than disbelief. So having heard that brief explanation, really a person needs to stop and think. I'm not saying that that brief explanation is enough for you. Maybe it's not enough for you. Maybe it is the case that you need to look into this in more detail. But you owe it to yourself in the sight of Allah that you look into this in more detail, that you get more answers, that you really go in and you look at what the Quran says, what the Prophet ﷺ said. And I think it's so important that you at this moment when you're looking into this, you make sincere dua to Allah directly alone. And you ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to guide you to the truth. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqa warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. Oh Allah, show us the truth is the truth and allow us to follow it, and show us the falsehood as falsehood and allow us to keep away from it. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.